So yesterday, I was sent a pre-production unit of the Nothing Phone 1, and this thing is wild. This is seriously one of the coolest phones I've seen this year. And at the same time, they announced the chip that's in here. So it's the Snapdragon 778G+, which is a mid-tier chip, but it's been modified to support wireless charging and reverse wireless charging. But the stance that the company's taking on this chip is that they chose it because it's a balance between performance and energy consumption and costs. But there's this conversation I'm seeing online where people are like, they should have chosen a more powerful chip, a more expensive chip to put inside this device. But after spending a little bit of time with it, I really think that if they'd put a more expensive chip in here, it would have gone in the opposite direction of what they're trying to do. So if you look at this phone, it's pretty clear that they're trying to build something that is different, right? Instead of that traditional route where companies will spend their phone budget on performance, right? How do you get the best specs? How do you get the best metrics on a phone? This company built something that's focused on design and aesthetic to create something that looks a little cooler and is a little more fun to use. So the first thing you'll notice is that this phone has a transparent back. You can see right through it. And you can see this very unique white aesthetic going on there, right? They got the white wireless charging coils, they got some white ribbon cables, even the screws, like they're aesthetically matched to this whole look. And there's a whole bunch of metal plates and just covers on everything. And these aren't just regular plates, like they're textured and patterned. Clearly the company put in a lot of effort into this look, and it's wrapped with this aluminum frame, and you can see the Phone 1 printed onto the side of it. And then there's also the lighting. So this device has a series of LED strip lights in here, and they serve a few purposes. They call it like the glyph lights, but for one, if you place the phone down, it'll flicker for a little bit just to kind of flex the lighting system. And it can also serve as like a charging indicator. So if you have a charging cable, you plug it up on the bottom, it shows just how full the battery is. It's kind of neat. You can use it as like a notification system with custom light patterns. And there's also the ability to link the lighting to the ringtone. So there's some that are default, but it'll also work with ringtones that you upload to the system. But you can have like specific light patterns and sounds, and it'll interact with the lights differently. It's kind of cool. A couple things though, the lights on this lighting system, they aren't RGBs, they're just plain white LEDs, so you can't change the color or anything like that. But the other thing I noticed is that the coloring of the lights is slightly inconsistent on these strips. And I don't know if it's because it's like a pre-production unit, but on the upper lights here, like the ones around the camera humps, they are like a greenish hue, and the ones down here are like a more pinkish hue. It could be different on the retail models, but it's something I noticed. And if they're all lit, it's just kind of strange to have slightly different colored white LED lights. Okay, I've had these lights and this phone for just, a day and a half at this point. And I gotta be honest, these are super cool. Now, I understand there's like an element of novelty here, right? This is the first time I've seen anything like this, and I'm a sucker for like white color technology, right? Like I love white phones, I love white laptops, and to see this, like this is so cool, especially when you get to see it in the dark. The front display also has this very even bezel around it. So top, sides, bottom bezel, all relatively thin and even, and this is very uncommon with mid-tier phones. Like you don't see this because it's impossible to do with a regular OLED panel. I believe you need a flexible screen to be able to do this and like tuck it underneath, like the way that iPhones do it. This is it's a small detail, but it's this aesthetically pleasing element to this device. Now, some people look at this stuff and like, this is just gimmicks, right? These lights, the see-through back, it doesn't really do anything for the actual phone experience, right? But the way I see it is that there's so many options out there already for like high performance devices in a particular price range. Like this is different. I don't think Nothing's trying to replace the mid-range phones out there, right? This is just an alternative. If this appeals to you, if this is something you're looking for, at least something like this is available instead of like the hundreds of other options that are just like clones of one another. This is fundamentally different, and I mean, if it speaks to you, it's available. Now, the thing to keep in mind though, that this is a mid-range chip. It can struggle with really heavy stuff. So if you grab really demanding games like Genshin Impact, it's fine at like 30 frames per second on low to medium graphics, but if you go to 60 frames per second, even on low, you're gonna get stutters here and there. It's perfectly fine for like casual Genshin, but if you wanna go hard to the core and you're worried about dropping combos, you're gonna drop combos on this device. And same thing with Diablo Immortal. I don't condone that game. It's a very microtransaction heavy title, but it's a very demanding title, and I think it tests phones well. This is a game that runs at 30 frames per second max. It's capped there because the hardware is limiting it. And even at 30 frames per second, you do get some stutter when there's a lot of stuff on screen. Now for less demanding titles like Call of Duty Mobile or Pokemon Unite, this phone can handle it without any issues. Max frame rate, max graphics quality. It's just the 778, you might think of it as a mid-tier chip, but in the current day and age of smartphones, mid-tier stuff can handle even gaming really well. It's just like the upper end of games that has issues on devices like this. But the current landscape of like the smartphone market is really weird. There's some people that are hyper focused on specs, like what chip does it have? What's the Geekbench score? How many cameras does it have on the back? The problem is that the pursuit of that stuff just leads to increasingly expensive phones for performance that you will likely never use. So to see a phone that's like not a spec warrior and to spend their budget on something that's fundamentally different and aesthetically different and I think a very pleasing phone, this is cool. Now in terms of pricing, I don't know what this is gonna cost yet, but my guess, based on what I'm seeing here and what the company looks to be doing, I think this is gonna be affordable for a lot of people. My guess, if I had to throw a number out there, is 500, like the equivalent to 500 US dollars, maybe a little bit less. But there you have it. These are my thoughts on the Nothing phone. What do you think?